Have you ever stopped to think about the world outside The Walking Dead? Sure, the show gives us an incredible journey through post apocalyptic America, but that's just it. It's only America. We've seen cities fall, communities crumble, and survivors fight for their lives, but there's never a single hint about what's happening in other countries. What if the outbreak isn't global? What if America is the only country dealing with the apocalypse? It's a bold theory, but one that raises some fascinating questions. Was the infection contained within U.S. borders? Did other nations manage to isolate themselves? Or, perhaps most chilling of all, was the outbreak intentional with America as its target? Today, we'll explore the evidence, the possibilities, and the deeper meaning behind this eerie idea. Let's start with what we know. From the very beginning of The Walking Dead, the story never leaves America. We follow Rick and the group from Georgia to Virginia, but the show never even hints at what's happening beyond U.S. borders. In Season 1, we meet Dr. Edwin Jenner at the CDC who tells us, "It's already in all of us." But think about it. Dr. Jenner's research only involves American subjects. He doesn't have data from Europe, Asia, or anywhere else. In later seasons, the pattern continues. There are no international broadcasts, no refugee stories, and no talk of global responses. The world outside America is a complete blank. Is this just a storytelling choice to keep things simple? Or is it a subtle clue that the outbreak is uniquely American? In a real-world apocalypse, you'd expect some kind of international communication. News reports, military efforts, or even stories from survivors who crossed borders. But in The Walking Dead, there's none of that. The lack of any mention of other countries is almost deafening. This silence could mean that the rest of the world either doesn't exist anymore or has successfully quarantined itself from the outbreak. Think about it. If other nations saw what was happening in the US, wouldn't they do everything in their power to seal their borders? Maybe America became the world's warning sign, a what not to do in a global crisis. Now, let's take a closer look at Fear the Walking Dead. The series begins on the West Coast, showing the early days of the outbreak in Los Angeles. But just like the original show, the story stays firmly within North America. Even when the characters take to the ocean in Strand's yacht, their focus is on staying near the Mexican coast. There's no talk of heading to Europe, Asia, or anywhere farther away. Later in the series, when the group crosses into Mexico, we still don't get any insight into what's happening beyond the Americas. It's as if the rest of the world might not even exist, or worse, doesn't want to get involved. Here's where the theory takes a darker turn. Some fans believe the outbreak wasn't a random virus, but rather an experiment gone horribly wrong, and that experiment might have been exclusive to the United States. Think back to the CDC scenes in Season 1. Dr. Jenner hints at government-level involvement in studying the virus. What if the infection was part of a secret experiment that accidentally or intentionally escaped containment? If that's true, it would make sense for other nations to quickly seal their borders, leaving America to deal with the consequences alone. On a deeper level, this theory ties into one of the show's central themes: isolation. The survivors in The Walking Dead are constantly divided by fear, by ideology, and by physical distance. Could the isolation of America itself be a reflection of these smaller struggles? Imagine the US as a kind of quarantined zone, abandoned by the rest of the world. It's a haunting metaphor for a nation grappling with its own chaos, left to face the consequences of its choices. The idea adds a layer of tragedy to the story. America as both the victim and the architect of its own destruction. There are practical reasons why this theory holds up. First, focusing on one country simplifies the storytelling. Expanding the narrative to a global scale would make the story more complex and distract from the core characters. Second, history shows that nations have often isolated themselves during pandemics. From the Black Death to modern outbreaks, quarantines have been a go-to strategy. If the outbreak in The Walking Dead started in America, other countries might have closed their borders early, effectively containing the virus. Of course, not everyone agrees with this theory. Critics argue that the lack of international perspective in the show is more about budget and storytelling limitations than an intentional plot point. After all, The Walking Dead is primarily about survival, not geopolitics. Others point to Dr. Mike Jenner's statement about the virus being in all of us as proof that the infection is global. But remember, Jenner's data is based on American samples. We never get definitive evidence of a worldwide outbreak. If America really is the only infected country, what would the rest of the world look like? It's possible that other nations have rebuilt and are thriving while America remains a wasteland. This opens up some fascinating what-if scenarios. Could there be scientists watching the U.S. from a distance studying the outbreak? Or perhaps other nations have strict quarantine measures in place, keeping the infection at bay. Either way, the idea of a functioning world outside America adds a whole new layer to the story. The theory that America is the only infected country is as haunting as it is intriguing. It forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about The Walking Dead. Could the apocalypse be a uniquely American tragedy? And if so, what does that say about the choices that led to it? In the end, the show's silence on the rest of the world might not be an oversight. It might be the loudest clue of all. America stands alone, a nation lost to the infection, as the rest of the world watches and wonders if it could happen to them. So, what do you think? Is America truly the only country infected in The Walking Dead? The idea leaves us with so many unanswered questions. If the rest of the world is safe, will we ever get to see it? And what does this theory say about the deeper themes of isolation, survival, and consequences within the show? The beauty of The Walking Dead has always been its ability to make us think beyond the surface. Whether this theory is true or not, it sparks a conversation that takes the story to a whole new level. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the infection is global, or is America truly on its own? Let me know in the comments below. Your insights are what keep theories like this alive. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the world of The Walking Dead. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking theories and discussions. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, survival is only half the story.